Chapter 41. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 41. Not just from the body. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. The second gift. There was actually a legendary second gift. Liang Yunqing cautiously looked at Yin Qianqian. Her second gift, could it be something strange? Looking at Liang Yunqing's sparkling big eyes, Yin Qianqian did not explain further. Instead, he directly picked up the remote control on the bedside table and turned on the television. On the television screen, a woman who was tied up appeared. She had her head lowered, her long hair was a little messy, her face was pale, and her breathing was very weak. It was so quiet that it made people wonder if she was still alive. Fortunately, on the surface, she did not suffer any external injuries. Zhao Xuexiang, 26 years old. She served in the army for 3 years and served in the army, Yin Qianqian said coldly from the side. As he said this, the woman who was sleeping on the screen was splashed with a bucket of cold water and gradually woke up. You're not going to show me some bloody, punishment scene, are you? Let me tell you, I hate watching thrillers the most. This familiar scene reminded Liang Yunqing of some terrifying scenes. That's not necessary. Yin Qianqian did not even turn his head. Liang Yunqing slightly raised her head from her own point of view and looked at Yin Qianqian's determined chin from a 45-degree angle. Her cold gaze fell on the television screen, as cold as a god looking down on all living things. However, that was indeed the case. For example, this woman's life was now in Yin Qianqian's hands. If I want you to watch a bloody movie, then I will definitely let you watch the way I deal with that man. Of course, I will not force you. But haven't you always wanted to know the specific reason why she kidnapped you? Liang Yunqing was silent for a moment and nodded. She retired early because she had to cooperate with her childhood sweetheart's boyfriend. Her boyfriend was going to be a spy. How could he have any connection with a police officer? For the so-called love, she gave up her beloved career first. A spy. Liang Yunqing could not help but show a surprised expression. To be a spy by your side. Although everyone had always said that Yin Qianqian wandered between black and white, Liang Yunqing had no real concept of what kind of person he was. In the past, her world only consisted of working to earn money and taking care of her parents. She had never thought that she would have any connection with such a world. And Yin Qianqian seemed to be telling her in such a way that she had already deviated from the original world and could not go back. Since you know so clearly, this means that her boyfriend has been caught by you, right? Liang Yunqing guessed. What a good child, giving a proper answer. Zhao Xuexiang is obviously thinking the same as you. But in this world, everything is uncertain, and nothing has an accurate answer. Yunqing, guess how I want to punish her? No, physically, that means psychologically. I have to give you 100 points for this answer. Yin Qianqian nodded gently. As I said, the funny thing about this woman is that she actually believes in love. Then let us help her see clearly what true love is. Yin Qianqian used his phone to send an order over. The people who were interrogating Zhao Xuexiang had a new move. They did not hit her, nor did they use any kind of bloody and horrible punishment. There was only a tablet in front of her. On the tablet were 2 white bodies entangled together. Chapter 42. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 42. I forgot that you are 18. Jean. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. How could there be such a thing on the screen? Liang Yunqing's face flushed red because of the image on the computer. But soon, her eyes were covered by a palm that reached out from behind. Well, I forgot that you temporarily belong to R18. Yin Qianqian's voice came faintly. It could cover her eyes, but it could not cover her ears. Liang Yunqing could still vaguely hear the faint moans from the television. Yin Qianqian was very cold, but his palm was burning hot. When it touched her sensitive eyelids, not only did her face turn red, but even her ears turned red. Soon, all the noise disappeared. The screen in front of Liang Yuncheng's eyes slowly moved away. At this moment, Zhao Xuexiang's expression on the screen was dull. Her eyes looked like they were about to split open. She was in a trance and was silent, as if she was thinking about something, but at the same time, she seemed to have lost herself. Her emotions were on the verge of breaking down. What exactly happened? Why did she suddenly have such an expression when she saw such a thing? As the camera moved, Liang Yuncheng saw a man's face appear on the iPad screen. The man had a handsome face and looked very righteous. However, he was leaning on the sofa with his arms around him. A few women with heavy makeup were lying in his arms. He looked like a playboy. This is Zhao Xuexiang's loving boyfriend, Nian Nin. Yin Qianchen's explanation made Liang Yuncheng understand instantly. She understood why Zhao Xuexiang had such a pained expression on her face. Because the man who was enjoying himself was the one she had been thinking about, the one she had loved with all her heart. Ah! Suddenly, Zhao Xuexiang let out a crazy scream. Liang Yuncheng was shocked by her and his body trembled slightly. On the screen, Zhao Xuexiang, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke, "Liar. You're all liars. You want to use such a method to drive a wedge between Qin Shuang and me. I'm telling you, it's impossible. I won't believe it easily. Are these things real?" Because of Zhao Xuexiang's words, Liang Yuncheng could not help but have a trace of doubt. She looked at Yin Qianchen seriously. Yin Qianchen smiled disdainfully. For a small figure like her, I wouldn't need to spend so much effort to create a fake to deceive her. Does that mean that her boyfriend really betrayed her? As expected, the most terrifying thing in this world was the human heart. It was originally for her boyfriend, for the person she loved deeply. She had risked her life to look for Yin Qianchen. Whether it was for the sake of her boyfriend, revenge, or love, the person she loved had betrayed her. Just as Yin Qianchen had said, everything she had done had become a terrible joke. What a joke! Was this what Yin Qianchen had said about torturing a person psychologically? While Liang Yuncheng was shocked, her heart was still filled with many doubts. So, you already know the whole story? Yin Qianchen asked her again. It's Zhao Xuexiang's boyfriend came to your side to be a spy, but in the end, he betrayed you. Liang Yuncheng tried her best to tell the story. Yin Qianchen stretched out a finger and gently waved it in front of her. Have you ever thought that this answer is too standard and is actually wrong? Chapter 43. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 43. She was almost mentally weak. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Dovco. The answer was too standard. But it was wrong. Wasn't this how it happened? Liang Yuncheng looked at Yin Qianchen strangely, feeling that she couldn't figure it out. No matter how she looked at it, the information she got, including what Yin Qianchen had told him himself, only summed up this result. This is a real story, not a question in school, so never think about it in a normal way. Haven't you ever thought that from the beginning, the plot was actually not a normal trend? From the beginning. Liang Yuncheng was confused. She was also a little incredulous. Could it be that he meant, from the beginning, Zhao Xuexiang's boyfriend was one of your people? It could be that when he was in the police force. It could even be that he had not become a police officer yet, and he had been bought over by Yin Qianchen when he was still a childhood friend of Zhao Xuexiang. This was a bold guess, but it was approved by Yin Qianchen. So this was a scam in a scam, which was even scarier than betrayal, because from the beginning, he might not have loved Zhao Xuexiang at all. The reason why he fought with her was to get more information for Yin Qianchen. The person on the screen might have also found out about this, so she went completely crazy. Her face was full of tears, mixed with the water that had been poured on her body. It was almost impossible to tell whether it was tears or something else on her face. However, Liang Yunqing still felt that she could see her sad tears. Liang Yunqing felt that her heart was heavy. Although it was funny that she sympathized with her enemy, if Yin Qianqian found out, he would criticize her again. However, from another perspective, as a woman who was more emotional than rational, being played with and cheated of her feelings was probably the saddest thing in her life. Was it because of this that Yin Qianqian said that love was the most ridiculous thing in the world? Did he deliberately let her see this to dispel the illusion of love in her heart, so that she would know that there would never be a fixed and trustworthy relationship? Yin Qianqian was really cruel. Zhao Xuexiang was untied on the screen, and Liang Yunqing was confused again. She didn't know what Yin Qianqian wanted to do. Did he want to let Zhao Xuexiang go? No, this was definitely not Yin Qianqian's style. In a while, something would definitely happen again. After Zhao Xuexiang was untied, she moved her wrist, wiped off the water droplets on her face, and tied up her messy hair again. It was as if what had just happened had never happened. Then, she raised her head and looked at the camera. She smiled coldly. Yin Qianqian, you are really good. So, this time, you win. Before anyone could react, Zhao Xuexiang turned around and jumped down from the open window. Liang Yunqing screamed and looked at Yin Qianqian in panic. This time, he did not cover her eyes. Instead, he let her see clearly what had happened in front of her. Perhaps, Yin Qianqian had already expected that things would come to this. That person was still very cold, as if such things were common and expressionless. It turned out that everyone said that the scary Yin Qianqian was because of this, and the scariest thing was his cold heart. His gaze met Liang Yunqing's. Seeing her panic, he stretched out his finger and gently flicked her forehead. Liang Yunqing recovered from the pain. Are you afraid just like that? I let you see all this today to tell you that you must never let your emotions get the best of you. And if you really want to succeed, you will see things that are even more cruel and cold than this. Finally, there's one more thing. There's actually another thing. Zhao Xuexiang had already jumped off the building. What else did he have to say to her? Liang Yunqing felt that if this continued, she was really going to have a nervous breakdown. Chapter 44. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 44. Hurry up and become an adult. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Looking at Liang Yunqing's nervous expression, Yin Qianqian found it funny. He turned off the TV as if it could isolate the world from them. I want to talk to you about something else. What? It didn't seem like something scary. Go abroad with me in a week. I've already helped you get your passport. You just need to pack up a little. Hao Qing will tell you about the weather in Country D, you just need to pack up the necessary luggage according to his instructions. You don't need to bring too many other things. You can buy them when you get there. Go abroad. Go to Country D now. She had only studied German for 1 to 2 months. No matter how good her learning ability was, Liang Yunqing could only cope with some daily expressions. Go to Country D now. Isn't it too urgent? Whatever thoughts Liang Yunqing had, it was all on her face. How could Yin Qianqian not see what she was thinking? It's not what you think. I don't have any work these few days, so I'll take you there to get used to it for 2 days. I'll also take a look at the living environment of the school there. If you have any thoughts, feel free to tell me. Upon hearing Yin Qianqian's words, Liang Yunqing relaxed. So that's how it was. It was her first time traveling abroad. Her chaotic mood earlier was indeed better because of this incident, but she still could not let it go. After that, Liang Yunqing began her boring and quiet recovery life. She would often think of that hateful person, Zhao Xuexiang, who must be pitiful. She did not know how she was now. At that time, she only saw her leap, but she did not know whether she was alive or dead. Yin Qianqian naturally would not take the initiative to mention it, and she would not ask for trouble. Fortunately, after Liang Yunqing's wound had healed a lot, the little yellow dog was finally allowed to approach her by Yin Qianqian and finally attracted all of Liang Yunqing's attention. For the first few days, Yin Qianqian forbade it to come near. The little yellow dog lived in the dog house that Hao Cheng had chosen for him in a miserable manner because whenever he saw Liang Yunqing, he would try to pounce on her and get close to her. Therefore, he could only be ordered to live in the garden. Although it was miserable, it was actually much better than his past wandering life. We should give him a name. It's too informal for a puppy to bark like that. Liang Yunqing stroked the smooth fur of the yellow dog, turned her head, and said to Yin Qianqian, who was watching TV and news on the sofa in the living room. Boring. Yin Qianqian didn't even turn his head, let alone his expression, since he already found the dog an eyesore. Boring. This name seems quite special. Liang Yunqing snickered and continued to stroke the dull, bright yellow fur while saying, boring, boring. From now on, you will be like me, living under someone else's roof. As if it understood Liang Yunqing's words, the puppy first barked twice and then whimpered. It was very miserable. Yin Qianqian finally could not bear to listen to this big and small pair playing around. He turned off the television with a bang and said, "Does this family still have any rules?" Hao Cheng, who was at the side, looked at it with a smile. He thought to himself, if you don't like it, you would have left long ago. In the past, you came and went in a hurry and were busy all day. How would you have time to set rules? Now, you like to stay at home because Miss Yun Sheng came and became popular. With the addition of a small pet, it was so perfect that there was only one flaw. It was that there was still a young master or a young miss missing. Miss Yun Sheng, you should quickly come of age. The noise that broke the buzz was the ringing of the phone. Nowadays, the usage of the landline was getting lower and lower. No one could figure out who made this call. Hao Cheng bent down and picked up the phone. He answered the call twice, turned around and said to Liang Yunqing, "Miss Yunqing, it's your call." Chapter 45. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 45. You two are living together. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. Who is it? It would be a wonder if she wasn't surprised. Liang Yunqing felt that she couldn't stay calm at all. Firstly, there were very few people who knew that she lived with Yin Qianqian. Even if they knew, it was impossible to get Yin Qianqian's home number. Secondly, apart from the Liang family, Liang Yunqing couldn't think of anyone else who had anything to do with her. Looking for her. It's young master Yu. Seeing that Liang Yunqing had no intention of moving, Hao Cheng walked over directly and handed the cordless phone receiver to Liang Yunqing. "You see you." Liang Yunqing took the phone in surprise. Thinking about it, it was true that the only person who had Yin Qianqian's phone number and who knew her, besides the Liang family, was him. But why did he specially call to look for her? "Hello." Liang Yunqing answered in a low voice with confusion. "Oh my God. You really live with Yin Qianqian." Just as Liang Yunqing's words left her mouth, Yu Siyue's side was already in an uproar. How could something so normal become so strange in your mouth? Liang Yunqing thought for a moment and decided to use a more ambiguous word. "I'm staying here because I have something to do." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Yu Siyue could not help but roll his eyes on the other end of the phone. He was not stupid. How could a person like Yin Qianqian let others stay in his home? However, Liang Yunqing told him this, obviously deliberately hiding it. If he directly exposed it, he would be too blind. "I want to find you to play." Yu Siyue carefully probed, saying that he had always had an idea after he accidentally found out that Liang Yunqing might be staying at Yin Qianqian's place, which was to trick the fun loving Liang Yunqing out and accompany him. Liang Yunqing suddenly felt a huge shadow in front of her, followed by an invisible pressure. "Oh, I don't have much time recently." Mr. Yin's aura was needless to say, it intimidated everyone, let alone Liang Yunsheng, who would tremble in the face of danger. No time. What else can you do? Yu Siyue was dissatisfied with her perfunctory response. I need to tutor. Also, I have to go to country D recently. Before Liang Yunsheng could finish her sentence, Yin Qianqian picked up the phone. Young master, you seems to be getting more and more free. Yin Qianqian lowered his voice. Pa. Do. The other side hung up the phone directly. Do you have to be so cowardly? Liang Yunsheng felt that she was dumbfounded. Yin Qianqian turned around at this time, and his eyes fell on Liang Yunsheng. Aya. The plane leaves tomorrow morning. I want to have a good rest and get ready. Liang Yunsheng turned around and ran back to her room. Hao Cheng, who was laughing secretly, left silently after seeing Liang Yunsheng run away. Only Yin Qianqian, who was bored, and Yin Qianqian were left. The man and the dog looked at each other, despised each other, and turned to leave. The next day, Liang Yunsheng carried her luggage and followed Yin Qianqian on her first overseas trip. Liang Yunsheng, who was on the plane for the first time, was a little excited. Yin Qianqian sat on the right side of her. It was very quiet in the first-class cabin. Although she was curious about the new things around her, she tried her best to sit calmly on the seat. When she turned around, she could see the side of Yin Qianqian's face. His side profile was more attractive than the front because of his high nose bridge. His profile was clear and his entire face was very handsome. Only his lips were the only little traitor that appeared on this face. The tip of his upper lip was slightly curved, revealing a faint bead of lips. The shape was very good looking, but it went against Yin Qianqian's usual desire to see himself as dressed more mature. He looked slightly childish. As if sensing Liang Yunsheng's gaze, Yin Qianqian naturally turned his head around. Good looking. Liang Yunsheng, who was a little stunned, answered subconsciously, yes, good looking. Chapter 46. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 46. Then let's not make you too bored. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. No. What the hell was good looking? Liang Yunsheng swore that she had only blurted out these words inexplicably after she had been in a daze. There was absolutely no other meaning behind it. No. Then it's not good looking. It's not that it's not good looking. Liang Yunsheng was a little embarrassed. Was there a mistake? Why was he here now, discussing with a man about whether or not he was good looking? After nearly 10 hours of flight, Liang Yunsheng gradually felt sleepy amidst her initial excitement. After she relaxed, she could not help but fall asleep. When she slowly woke up, she realized that she was covered with a blanket and her head was leaning against Yin Qianqian's shoulder. Liang Yunsheng was slightly shocked and quickly sat up. She then realized that Yin Qianqian had been sitting in the position of a computer for 7 to 8 hours. Was he usually like this at work? He was expressionless and emotionless. His fingers rapidly tapped on the keyboard and occasionally stopped. One of his hands gently propped up his chin as if he was carefully studying something. This time, even though Liang Yunsheng was looking at him so carefully, he did not turn his face away. Seeing his serious look, after waking up, the energetic Liang Yunsheng could not help but start doing nothing again. There was still an hour before the plane could land. Liang Yunsheng's gaze fell on Yin Qianqian, who was at the side. She was careful not to make a sound. She pushed her nose, stuck out her tongue, and made a big face at Yin Qianqian. She thought that Yin Qianqian would not pay attention to her this time, but he suddenly turned around and looked at her. His gaze swept over Liang Yunsheng's face. Yin Qianqian opened his mouth slightly and said one word, ugly. Are you kidding me? I'm praising you for looking good. You actually say it. Me. Ugly. Liang Yunxing suddenly remembered that Yin Qianqian had asked her to have her hair, skin, and legs beautified because he thought she was ugly. Could it be that she was really that ugly? Liang Yunxing held her chin and turned her face to the other side. She decided to refuse to continue the conversation with Yin Qianqian. Across a corridor, on her right was a handsome foreign man with blonde hair and blue eyes. At this moment, this handsome man was leaning against his seat with his eyes closed, as if he was resting. Am I ugly? Liang Yunxing puffed her cheeks and lowered her voice, as if she was talking to herself. She pretended to be mischievous, as if she was talking to a handsome man. Her voice was very low, and her foreign friends could not understand her Chinese. Of course you're not ugly. You're also very cute. Liang Yunxing did not expect that this foreign handsome man would suddenly open his eyes and answer her. Moreover, he spoke standard Mandarin. She was really shocked. Then, thinking of his words, Liang Yunxing could not help but blush. Did he see that silly look just now? She was about to respond to the blonde handsome man when she was unexpectedly interrupted. On the other side, Yin Qianqian suddenly stood up. Liang Yunxing raised her head and looked at him. Are you going to the toilet? Change your seat. Since you're so bored, I'll let you take a good look at the scenery outside by the window. Before Liang Yunxing could figure out what Yin Qianqian meant, he reached out and pulled her up. As if he was throwing something, he threw her directly onto his original seat. This person. What's wrong with him? Chapter 47. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 47. See who she belongs to. Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation. All the way until the plane landed smoothly. Liang Yunxing was really like that. She looked at the sky. The blue sky was filled with white clouds, and the soft clouds were like cotton candy. They were 10,000 meters high in the sky, and they seemed so small. Looking at the sky, one could not help but think of freedom, but who else was truly living in freedom? You, or me? No, there was no one who was absolutely free. We were always bound by reality, bound by benefits, bound by love and hatred. In Country D, Yin Qianqian also had some businesses. Although this was not a company that was focused on development, the big boss had attacked, so naturally, he would send a few people to pick them up. However, Yin Qianqian had said that he was not here on official business, so he did not want to have anything to do with the company. Therefore, Liang Yunxing originally thought that no one would come to pick them up. However, at the airport at this moment, there was such a blonde girl. She was very tall, had a curvy figure, a tall nose, and light blue eyes. She gave off an arrogant aura, which was even better than Sophia. Hey! Chen, long time no see. The woman walked over in her high heels and gave Yin Qianqian a big hug. Then, she held his face and planted a kiss on his face. Liang Yunxing's eyes were wide open. She could not believe her eyes. She actually dared to just kiss him. That iceberg-like face. What surprised Liang Yunxing even more was that not only did Yin Qianqian not explode because of this, but he also accepted the kiss as if he did not care. This is... Hello, little friend. The woman smiled and turned around to face Liang Yunxing. Little friend. Why was she a little friend? Although he wasn't old, he was still a 16-year-old girl in the prime of his life. To be called a little friend as if he was in kindergarten, wasn't that a little too impolite? Auntie, your actions just now made me very unhappy. As Liang Yunxing said that, she directly reached out and grabbed Yin Qianqian's arm. Oh. The woman raised her eyebrows. She whistled and smiled contemptuously. I really didn't expect that, Chen, your taste is so unique. You can even swallow underage people who are stunted. The key is that this underage face doesn't seem to be that good. Do you have to be so direct? She was pointing at her nose and cursing. Liang Yunqing puffed up her cheeks in anger. Just as she was about to argue with her, Yin Qianqian reached out and grabbed her shoulder. He leaned on her and said, "Sai Na, before you bully her, you better know who she belongs to." Perhaps because she saw that Yin Qianqian was protecting her son, Sai Na stopped mocking Liang Yunqing. However, she could not help but approach Liang Yunqing before the three of them got into the car. She deliberately sized up Liang Yunqing with ill intentions and turned her face when Yin Qianqian was not paying attention. She looked at Liang Yunqing and shrugged. "I'm sorry, I just can't find a reason for Chen to like you." Liang Yunqing paused for a moment. This time, she did not show any anger. Instead, she smiled at her brightly and said, "Maybe, what he likes about me is that I'm not as nosy as you." She really did not know why this Sai Na was so against her the first time they met. After thinking about it, Liang Yunqing had a bold guess, that she liked Huan. Yin. Chen. Chen. Chapter 48. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 48. What an obedient little wife. Author. Bitter days. Machine translation. She was happy Yin Qianqian. TSK, this was an incredible discovery. Originally, it was her freedom to choose who Saina liked. It had nothing to do with Liang Yunqing, but the bad thing was that Liang Yunqing and Yin Qianqian had an ambiguous relationship. It made her innocent, and she became the imaginary love rival of others. Although she had met such a troublesome person, the journey had started smoothly. Sai Na was only responsible for their transportation. Therefore, when Liang Yunqing and Yin Qianqian arrived at their residence, she left. The place they lived in was a property of Yin Qianqian in Country D. Although it was not as big as the Yin residence, it was just an ordinary house. It was not luxurious and even seemed like a simple residence. However, Liang Yunqing found it very interesting. As there was no one living here all year round, there were no butlers or cooks here except for the cleaners. There's no need to invite a chef. Anyway, we won't stay for long. Besides, we're here for a trip, so we should eat out most of the time. Occasionally, when we're at home, let me do it." Liang Yunqing looked at Yin Qianqian with a face full of hope, as if she was going to let me show off my skills. However, Yin Qianqian's gaze was slightly upward, and it fell on Liang Yunqing. What's going on? Just now. It seemed that he saw a trace of something called suspicion in his eyes. Okay. However, Yin Qianqian still agreed to give Liang Yunqing the most important food for her. Of course, this did not mean that Yin Qianqian trusted her very much, because Liang Yunqing lowered her head and saw that Yin Qianqian had already silently started to flip through a few German takeout flyers. This was a person who treated her extremely well. *CK insult. HMPH. The more this was the case, the more she could not be looked down upon by him. Liang Yunqing rolled up her sleeves. It was time for her to show off her skills. However, this was Country D. Even if Liang Yunqing was able to cook the delicacies of Manchu and Han dynasty, there were not many ingredients here that were suitable for Chinese food. However, she would never be defeated just like that. Liang Yunqing went to the kitchen to check. There was basically everything, especially a bag of fresh spaghetti. Don't forget who she was. She was an advanced employee of a noodle shop. Auntie Wang had taught him a special snack that he created himself. The main ingredient was very strange, and it was spaghetti. The taste of Chinese food made from spaghetti sounded like a fantasy that was not the case. Do you know what words to use to describe Chinese food is the best? That is, the ocean accepts all rivers. Yin Qianqian sat on the sofa in the living room, looking at the documents in his hands. When he heard the sound of pots and pans colliding in the kitchen, he subconsciously raised his head. What entered his eyes was Liang Yunqing's busy figure. Although there was still no expression on his face, he could see that Yin Qianqian's expression had become much gentler. This was a very strange feeling. It was a very ordinary word, but to Yin Qianqian, it was an extremely unfamiliar word, home. Looking at that petite figure, well, it seemed to be a little interesting. It was like an obedient little wife who was in high spirits to cook dinner for her husband. Not long after, Liang Yunxing placed a large bowl of steaming hot noodles on the table and handed a silver fork to Yin Qianqian, waiting for him to taste it personally. Although Yin Qianqian was skeptical, he could only give an evaluation after he had eaten it. Looking at the noodles on the table, it was not too ugly, but it could not be compared to the delicacies that he had eaten on a daily basis. Even the kitchen maid at home was a proper chef with a technician qualification, so how could her dishes be bad? But because of this, even the dishes that he ate on a daily basis were like those in a restaurant, so he probably did not know what a home-cooked dish was. Yin Qianqian rolled up the noodles, put them into his mouth, and chewed elegantly with his lips pursed. "How is it?" Liang Yunxing asked anxiously. Especially at this time, Yin Qianqian's expressionless face made people more anxious. Chapter 49. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 49. The Warmest Smile Author. Bitter Days. Machine translation HMM. Yin Qianqian was silent for a while. Liang Yunxing was very nervous. She was most afraid that when he was silent, he would be cold to begin with. If he didn't speak, who could tell what he was thinking? The appearance is not good, but the taste is not bad. It was very surprising. This kind of inconspicuous but very tasty food. If Yin Qianqian didn't deliberately give Liang Yunxing a few points because of its appearance, he would give it a good evaluation. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was given full marks. Most importantly, it was actually very difficult to make the simplest food taste the best. Liang Yunxing would not have thought so much. With his words, it was enough to win back her face. She picked up the other fork on the table and ate happily. Mr. Yin turned his head and saw Liang Yunxing eating spaghetti. Her cheeks were bulging, like a little rabbit that was chewing grass non-stop. This kind of scene where they sat together and ate warmly was actually not in Yin Qianqian's plan. However, from the looks of it, it did not seem too bad. After eating, the two of them took a short break to get used to the time difference. Yin Qianqian satisfied Liang Yunxing's overflowing curiosity and brought her around. At this moment, Liang Yunxing realized that Yin Qianqian had just bought this house when he decided to send her to Country D to study abroad. Therefore, this house was not far from T University. In other words, if she were to come here to study, she would live in this house in the future. Therefore, the first target of Yin Qianqian and Liang Yunxing was T University, which was located in the northern suburbs of Country D's capital. The university was actually so big. This was Liang Yunxing's first feeling when she walked into T University. Liang Yunxing's concept of the school was only in the junior and senior high school years. A few teaching buildings and a large playground. In the university, a school could instantly kill the entire school. The more famous departments in T University were the biology department, the finance department, the medical department, and the literature department. Of course, some other subjects were also very outstanding. The most important thing was, it was not just money or intelligence that was enough to enroll in T University. Most of the students in T University were either rich or privileged. Even the gate of the university was more than 10 times the size of the past. Liang Yunxing followed behind Yin Qianqian and walked into the gate made of Roman columns. What greeted her was a prototype of a large flower bed. This was the botanical garden that T University directly displayed to the public. There were all kinds of flowers and plants. Of course, it was just a flower bed. These plants were also the best plan designed by the students of the design department from various aspects such as color, shape, and so on. This is only a part of the botanical garden of T University, Yin Qianqian said. If you want to see it, I can take you to the real botanical garden of T University. There are greenhouses there, and many flowers that are not suitable to be planted in this season can be seen. Yin Qianqian's suggestion was naturally echoed by Liang Yunxing. However, she did not expect that Yin Qianqian would be able to bring her in and out of T University's botanical garden freely when no one was around. Hey! That flower! The color is so beautiful. Although she did not understand these flowers and plants, everyone had the heart to love beauty, let alone a young girl like Liang Yunsheng who was in the flower season. Not long after, the mystery of the plant world attracted all of Liang Yunsheng's eyes. Of course, while she was curious, she did not forget to turn around and smile happily at Yin Qianqian. It was a smile that welcomed the sunlight. It seemed to be because of this, it was exceptionally warm and dazzling. Liang Yunsheng was cute and beautiful, but she was not the most peerless beauty that Yin Qianqian had ever seen. At this moment, it actually made him a little dazed. Yin Qianqian was slightly stunned. He subconsciously walked to Liang Yunsheng, reached out his hand, and gently touched her fair face with his fingertips. Note: the school in the story is all fiction. Chapter 50. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 50. I'm afraid that hooligans are cultured author. Bitter days. Machine translation. Liang Yunsheng tilted her face slightly because of his actions. There's a stalk of grass. Yin Qianqian naturally picked up a stalk of withered grass from her cheek. Oh, thank you. Liang Yunsheng touched her face and turned around, not letting Yin Qianqian see her. Speaking of which, Yin Qianqian seemed to be able to move freely in this school without any restrictions. This was very strange, but without thinking much, she knew that he must have some connection with this school. How's the latest German learning? Perhaps to ease the slightly awkward atmosphere, Yin Qianqian took the initiative to ask her this time. Well, I have mastered some basic daily language, Liang Yunsheng answered honestly. Then I'm going to meet someone later. Do you mind being my translator? L.rg. So direct, being my translator. It was really impossible. A person who had only learned German for a few months, wasn't it a bit risky to be a translator? I can do it, but, if my translation is not accurate, you can't blame me. Liang Yunsheng was not stupid. She had to say the ugly words in advance, otherwise, if something went wrong later, she would have to bear the responsibility inexplicably. Yin Qianqian nodded, as if he did not care. Later, Liang Yunsheng found out that the person who met Yin Qianqian was a professor of philosophy at T University, Professor Hans. At the same time, he was the vice-president of this university. The three of them sat in Professor Scher's clean and tidy office. Yin Qianqian looked very comfortable, and Professor Hans was even more comfortable. The only person who sat upright was Liang Yunsheng. Hans and Yin Qianqian chatted casually and slowly. Not only did Yin Qianqian talk respectfully to Professor Hans, but his conversation was also quite good. Liang Yunsheng secretly complained in her heart. She was really afraid of hooligans being cultured. At the same time, Liang Yunsheng was also trying her best to accurately express every word that Yin Qianqian said to Professor Hans. Because she had just learned German, her brain did not have an accurate reaction speed. Even if she knew how to express that word, Liang Yunsheng still needed to translate it in Chinese in her mind, so the speed of translation was still a little slow. Fortunately, the two of them did not mind this matter. Instead, they waited with interest. The young girl in front of them, who had a serious look and was working hard at translating, would occasionally have words that she could not translate, and they would use English instead. At the end of the conversation, Professor Hans smiled and said to Liang Yunsheng, "You are very welcome to attend our school. That way, you can become Derek's junior." Derek was Yin Qianqian's English name. So, junior meant. Liang Yunsheng was shocked. If Yin Qianqian had studied at this school, then it meant that he clearly knew German. Seeing Liang Yunsheng's surprised expression, Professor Hans immediately said apologetically, "I was only in charge of talking, I didn't help Derek do any cheating." Liang Yunsheng barely managed not to flare up in front of Professor Hans. When she walked out of the school, Liang Yunqing finally could not hold back the anger in her heart. She looked at Yin Qianqian angrily. Are you playing with me on purpose? You want to see me lose face? You clearly studied in Germany, yet you still said, what, let me translate. It was clear that you wanted her to make a fool of herself. Liang Yunqing turned her head to argue with Yin Qianqian. As she talked and walked, she bumped into an even more exaggerated person who was holding a stack of books. Fortunately, Yin Qianqian was behind her. He turned his body to protect her, so that she was not hurt by those books. I'm sorry. The person apologized and looked up again. He saw Liang Yunqing from the corner of his eyes, and his face was full of surprise. It's you.